This is Nights with Peter Grubby Stubbs.
Good evening to you. Yes, Dennis is away once again, not feeling the best. So, Den, send our love, our best wishes. Hope you'll be back in the studio very, very soon. We're tipping it's probably going to be next Monday. In the meantime, it's a normal nighttime show here on 3AW. All the wonderful features. I've got Marnie. I've got Simon Owens behind the glass. What could possibly go wrong? And it won't. Terrific to have you on board tonight. Plenty to talk about, plenty to do. A big show coming up. I've got Dental Health with Dr. Larry Benj. Wednesday nightcap. I'm so looking forward to Darren James and Andrew McLaren joining me at 9 o'clock. Talk at the Town with Peter Hitchener. And a very, very special interview, because I think she's only done one electronic interview. I'm just saying it was TV, but no radio. I'm going to have the privilege tonight of having a lovely chat to Patty Newton about the upcoming Mother's Day show with John Foreman and the gang at Hamer Hall this Sunday. It sounds like a great gig. Can't wait to have a chat to Patty and see how she's doing. That's a little later in the program. Theo Sugrafis is a Monash councillor. He is sitting before me with news of the day. Theo, welcome. Good to see you.
G'day, Grub. It's a pleasure to be here as always.
Well, the last time I spoke to you, you were at the museum. There was Triceratops in the background. You were having canapes. I took you away from that. Yeah. Did you get to have a chat to Dan Andrews about anything?
That was last week, Grub.
That's right.
I did have a brief chat to the Premier,
Yeah.
very briefly, and I think he was quite amazed at this Greek exhibition that was on ancient Greek
That's
artifacts, Open Horizons. So he was great there. And I actually... You wouldn't believe it, but I saw the Premier last week, and I was invited to an event yesterday up in down my way, and the Prime Minister was the guest there, so I had a chat to him.
Jeez.
Who am I going to see next week, Rob?
Oh, look out.
The Governor General, maybe?
Elbow will be...
Yeah.
He'll be listening to this thinking, hey, hang on a minute, what about me? It isn't fair. He'll be singing to you.
No, I have to see him.
You're rubbing shoulders with all the big guys.
For the time being, I think it's just luck of the draw in my diary.
How's ScoMo? What's his mood? With under 3 weeks to go.
Oh, look, he this was with local community leaders.
Yeah.
Spoke about multiculturalism. I think when you're in the middle of a campaign like he and Albo are, it's all adrenaline, it's all energy.
Sure.
So he probably doesn't really have time to really. Have a break, I guess. So it's just one thing to the next.
It must be when you're on the campaign trail, as it were, the so-called whistle-stop tours and everything else. For those guys who are doing it, the two main men, as it were, it must be absolutely exhausting. Geez, you'd want a bit of a lie down after this, wouldn't you?
I'd want to know what they're having for lunch, because I think it must be just one of those, those shakes or something really quick, or a coffee, because it is really full on. And I think win, lose or draw, there'll be a few days afterwards that they would need to spend some time with their families, I guess.
How's that couch looking? How's Netflix and Matraki Dax? I'm tipping.
Netflix or some political show.
It's no good rubbing your hands together. There's the new Prime Minister. Right, let's get back to work. No, I'm stuffed. I need that couch and I need it now. Theo, good of you to join me in the studio tonight. A survey has found that almost 2/3 of Australians think it would be, there's 2/3, a good thing if there came a time where it was no longer legal to sell cigarettes in shops in Australia. What are your thoughts?
Well, it's an interesting stat. That means, of course, 1/3 don't believe that it's the right thing to do at this stage. Look, I mean, I'm not a smoker, Grub, and I come from a family, my parents don't smoke either, so I've had that upbringing. But there's no doubt that there's been a change in the attitudes of Australians, certainly in my time, the last 20 years or so. Down my way, we've had a debate for the last 5 or 6 years about outdoor dining smoking. So smoking when you're having your coffee and having a bite to eat with the family. So that's been an issue. And people will say to me, oh, but Theo, it's legal. Why can't I be allowed to smoke?
It's such an interesting thing because and look, we'd love to take calls, 133 First of all, what do you think? Is this a good thing? If there came a time where it was no longer legal to sell cigarettes in shops in Australia, is that a good thing? Tell us too, have you recently given up and how hard was it? Or are you going to say, no, it's my little pleasure and the old excuse, it's legal. But what if smoking, Theo, was a new invention? What if it was nobody had ever smoked before?
Yeah.
And you, Theo, had been doing a bit of work out in the shed and you've come up with this wonderful new invention. And you are selling it to me. as the consumer. You're saying, no, it's good. You get a bit of paper, see, right? Thanks, Theo. You crush up some leaves, you put a few toxic drugs in there, you give it a filter, and then you suck it into your lungs, and then you blow it out. Should be fun. What do you reckon? Give it a go.
Oh, yeah, where do I sign up, Grub?
And I'd be saying, Theo, mate, I reckon it's back to the drawing board for another invention. I don't think, if somebody just invented cigarettes now, there is no way known they would be legal. There is not a hope in hell. But the government makes so much money out of them, that's why we've still got them.
Oh, absolutely.
Surely. We'll never ban smoking for that.
Well, look, we've got all sorts of problems with the federal budget as it is, and if you take out a big chunk, like it'd be in the billions, of course, every year, that would have an impact. I think there probably will come a time, Grub, maybe not in my lifetime, but there probably will come a time where it probably will be banned.
Do you think it will?
I think so.
Because it'll go underground.
The thing is,
like prohibition.
The marketplace itself will probably sort it out, like a lot of things.
Yeah.
And we know that there are less people that smoke.
Well, 2% of 12 to 17-year-olds are smoking with any regularity now. Now,
Wow, yeah.
I used to smoke. I took smoking up in my late teens. This would be 1971, 72, just on the sort of the cusp of leaving school. But I wasn't Robinson Crusoe. All my mates did, and we've all subsequently given up. And I don't mind smoking. I don't mind the smell. I don't mind anything. That's fine. It's up to you and everything else. But I think banning it. I just could never, because the underground already there's so-called chop chop. Is it that people can buy
chop
illegally?
Yeah.
And where would people go for that? Do you go to the pharmacy for your cigarettes then?
Well, you raise a good point. I don't know the exact number or stats, but there is already, as it stands, an illegal cigarette trade, I guess. People that import it illegally, sell it under the counter. So I guess, that's part of this overall issue and solution. But I look at vaping, and a lot of people that I know have transitioned to vaping.
Yeah.
So I think in time, and I think the cigarette companies themselves would look at the vaping product and try to transition that into their offering.
Yeah.
And it's like a lot of things, whether it's electric cars or something that's a bit more innovative over time, they still sell the same service, but it's a different product.
Yeah.
So that's where I think it will go in the future.
It's so interesting when you look back too, and you look at films and TV and everything. Even smoking. And my mother was a nurse. She smoked while pregnant, and probably had a couple of darts while she, had me in the maternity ward. It wouldn't have been unusual.
Well, product placement. Yeah, James Bond movies and all those movies in the 50s and 60s.
Absolutely, it was.
It was a huge part of society.
Very glamorous. 133693. Should cigarettes not be sold in shops? 2/3 of people say, they shouldn't be. Have you recently given up, and how hard was it? Was it really difficult to do? I gave it up when I was 30. It wasn't hard because we had 2 young children. I just thought, that's it, good night. And I'd started in radio, and we were smoking in the studio in those days.
Oh, goodness.
Yes, imagine that. I'll pass
that
you
was legal, was it?
Yeah. But yes, thank you. We don't do that sort of thing in this industry. What are you talking about, Theo? Let's take some calls on this. Mary, good evening to you.
Hi. Look, I was going to just sort of say, it's really funny that we're talking about stopping, selling tobacco and cigarettes.
Yeah.
We're legalising marijuana and drugs, and I think drugs and marijuana are a lot more dangerous than tobacco. Look, it is going to kill you. Yeah. But with drugs, I think it kills people a lot more, and it just seems...
Which drugs are legal?
Sorry?
Which drugs are legal?
Well, marijuana, you're allowed to have so much marijuana. Yeah. You're allowed to have so much marijuana. So you're driving with marijuana.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And that's okay. It just seems really silly.
Same with alcohol, I guess.
Look, it's just sort of really silly. Like Australia, I always thought it was a pretty clever country.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of things that are happening with with politics and everything here, and people are really blind to what's happening overseas. It's just... and now you're talking about stopping cigarettes. That's so
being sold. Just being sold in shops. The survey was done, and it was 2/3 of people say that they shouldn't be allowed to be sold in shops. Have you ever smoked yourself, Mary?
Yes, I did. I used to smoke. My husband and I both smoked.
Yeah.
And my husband stopped about 30 years ago because I used to say to the kids, tell your dad to stop smoking. tell your dad to stop smoking. And they were on his back at 5 and 6. So and he hasn't touched a cigarette at all.
Yeah.
I must admit, I do have the occasional cigarette if I have a glass of wine.
Yeah.
You know, if I've gone to a wedding, I might have one. But my husband has not had one cigarette. And I think that's fantastic.
Yeah.
So it's just made me I was sort of laughing because I'm thinking things that we should be worried about, we're not talking about.
Yeah.
And I'm sort of thinking it's just really silly that...
Plenty we can talk about, but this was just something that we came up for discussion, Mary. But thanks for joining in on the conversation. Much appreciate your thoughts. Bill, good evening to you.
Hello.
Hi there, Bill.
Yeah, cut out for a second. Yeah. Well, I was similar to that lady. I was saying that, you know, one minute they want to legalise smoking dope, and the next minute they want to make it illegal to have cigarettes.
Yeah.
I mean, they're a bit all over the place, aren't they? They're not.
Well, no one said it's illegal, Bill. No one said it's illegal. We're just making it harder for people to do it. I think cost must be a factor. I mean, how much is a packet of 20 these days, Theo?
It'd be over $30. Not that I smoke, but that's, you know.
Jeez, imagine going through that. My grandfather used to smoke a pack a day. In World War One, they gave them cigarettes in the trenches in France, and he and my grandmother, my paternal grandparents, they smoked like you wouldn't believe. It must have it cost them a fortune now.
Well, yeah, back then it would have been $1 for a pack, or it was obviously much cheaper and simpler lifestyle back then.
Very simple lifestyle.
But yeah, look, I think people will definitely over the next year or two look at these type of costs in their household, whether it's cigarettes or whether it's other parts of people's lifestyles, and they might think twice about spending on these things.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Cost you a few bob. I remember my grandfather. He was one of these smokers. We'd be in an exciting football match at the Lakeside Oval. He was a South Swan supporter like all the rest of us. I used to see him draw on a cigarette. I'd see it burn about 4 inches up, and then he'd inhale the smoke, but then nothing had come out. And I used to look at him and think, where's that gone? It's just unbelievable. Oh, he lived to 84. Well done. Some people do. Thanks so much for your call, Bill. Andy, good evening to you.
Good evening, Grubby. I started smoking age 16.
Yep.
And on December the 8th, 2013, I woke up with a stroke and haven't had a cigarette since.
Righto. Okay. And did the doctor
So I had
say...
to do it the hard way.
Yeah, well, look, a lot of people do, and sometimes that's what it takes. And did you get immediate benefits from tossing it in altogether, Andy? You feel better, smell better, all that?
Yeah, but I still, if I'm walking down the street and someone's having a smoke, I still walk into their smoke so I can just get a whiff of it back for memories, you know?
Yeah, I don't mind the smell of it at all, because it reminds me of being out and having a good time. I'm sorry, but it does. And
but you know the ironic part about it?
Yeah.
Probably the last packet of smokes I smoked had a picture of a woman with a stroke on it. You know,
Yep.
so I think that's pretty ironic.
Yeah, put two and two together, mate, didn't you? Well, good on you. I think that's a good thing. But once again, look, it's all about choice. But I suppose the harder we make it for people, if they don't sell them in shops, Theo, where would they sell them? Pharmacy? Would you go and say, I'll have my intake here?
Definitely, or you sell them in, less shops, whether it's only one per suburb, or you transition to medical clinics or that sort of thing, like you said, pharmacies. But the other thing that I think Mark or Andy rather said is that the plain packaging, that was brought in about 12 years ago. So every sort of 10 or so years, there's something material that the governments do to really drive that number down. And, of course, Quit Victoria is one of those organisations as well. And so that's where I think we've come to that 8%. And as I said earlier, I think in 10 years it'll be, 4% of society that smokes. And eventually it'll be...
That'll be that.
That's it.
That'll be that. Andy, thanks for your call. Theo Zagrafis is a Monash councillor. He's got news of the day. Plenty more to talk about, but we'll take more calls. Cigarette being banned in being sold in shops. Geez, where are you going to buy them then? Do you think that's okay? 2/3 of people do in this survey. And if you have given up, how did you do it? Did you have a method? And how was it for you? 133 693. Theo Zagrafis is with me, Monash councillor, with news of the day. And 2/3 of people believe, yes, that'll be okay to ban cigarettes being sold in shops. So we'd have to get them from somewhere else. Vending machines have been banned, haven't they?
There you go. We should invent... Well,
that's right.
Well,
Can you still get them out of a vending machine?
No, I don't believe
Well, I don't think a Mr. Whippy type truck would be a good idea. playing a few old cigarette ad themes, driving around the suburbs selling them. I don't think that'd work. I wonder where we'll get them from. Do you think it's a good idea? Do you think it's okay? How did you give up? 133 693, if indeed you have. G'day, Mark.
Yeah, g'day, Grubby. Hello, Theo.
G'day.
Hey, you've been listening, Theo. I live in your ward. But anyway,
Great.
Be nice.
Great to call in, Mark.
I will cover this by saying I am a smoker. I've just put one out.
Yep.
But I, like a lot of smokers, want to give up. Always. But there's been, for over a decade, and he's been on this station that many times, a friend of mine's father is a senator in Tasmania, and he has pushed for this idea that you ban smoking from a certain stage, or like 2025, and you say anybody who has a smoking addiction, we will help them along, but then, it's banned from that stage. We'll take it all away. And if you want to give up, and you give up, you sign a document like gambling, and that say I want to give up, and then you can't get smokes again, and you're one of the banned people. And just give people a chance to say give up, and then let's take them away from the young'uns, so that they're not growing up with seeing smoking and this and that and all the time. And I think he's got a hell of a lot of salient points. He's been on 3RW that many times.
So, Mark, it's like an opt-in process, similar to those people that have, say, problem gambling, and they're given a limit on how much they can use per session, that sort of thing. Has this actually been implemented in? Did you say Tasmania? Did you say, or is it just at this point proposal?
No. He is actually in the upper house in Tasmania, but he's pushed this and he's pushed on 3RW that many times over the last decade. I've heard him. It's just his idea, and I think it's a damn good idea to start with, and that's half of it: opt in, opt out. But from a certain stage, it gets banned, and you go. The product is banned unless you have this addiction, and then you can continue with it. But if you opt out, you can't get back in.
Interesting. Well, look, I'll have a look at that offline, and it sounds like a
It's an
pretty
interesting thought, Mark.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very interesting thought. Thanks so much for your call, Ian. Good evening to you. Hi, Ian.
Hi, Grubby.
Hi there.
Yeah, Grubby, I'm in the audience. I smoked for 23 years, and I gave up about 8 months ago, and it was easy.
Easy? Jeez, Ian, that's a good effort if you ask me. What did you do?
I went into a psychiatric ward, and they got me on patches.
Yeah.
And I decided to try staying on the patches and quit smokes.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure it must be a big answer to prayer. I'm Christian. But
yeah. Well, everything helps.
It must be a big answer to prayer as a Christian that I quit smokes 8 months ago, and it was easy, and I'd smoked for 23 years.
Gee, that's a good effort.
In a psych ward, I went on patches, and then that's how I quit.
Well, whatever gets you through the night, Ian. Beauty. And how are you feeling?
I had slight bronchitis, rhinitis, which I still got, but I'm not coughing up as much phlegm as I was.
Well, that's handy.
That's another story in itself.
Oh, absolutely, especially around dinner time. But look, that's a good effort, Ian. So good for you, mate. And you're feeling well and standing down well too. So good for you, my friend. Well done. Gee,
Thank you.
Top effort. Good on you, mate. Keep up the good work. Theo's with me. Just one more. Yarra Council is poised to hike fees by 40% for children's swim lessons and fees for its leisure centres. Why? I sound like Neil Mitchell. Why?
Yeah.
I mean, we've had kids out of pools, out of playgrounds. There was a thing the other day where kids aren't catching the ball properly because they haven't been in playgrounds doing these things. Why would you put fees up for swim lessons? That's crazy stuff.
Well, look, on the face of it, it doesn't make sense. Knowing how councils work, as I do, I'm sure that there's some sort of tangible reason for it. But what I would say, having looked at this briefly, Grubby, is that this is just a draft budget.
Yeah.
So if anyone that has concerns in Yarra, either residents or ratepayers, I encourage them to take part in the consultation process before the final budget is enacted. And hopefully the Yarra councillors can take a second look, because at the end of the day, these are, I would assume, the families that probably couldn't do with a 40% rise in these type of fees. I know at Monash we froze a lot of our fees in this regard. We froze our council rates for the 21 financial year, and that was something that was quite helpful. So, I'll keep monitoring this one, and hopefully common sense prevails in the end.
So price hiking, I mean, the Burnley Golf Course residents' parking permits are going to go up 20%. These are all about outside exercises, stuff that we haven't been able to do for the last 2 years. I reckon that is just impossibly bad timing, in my opinion. It's not going to become the new norm or anything like that. There's price hiking.
Well, look, I don't know. I haven't looked at Yarra, but many councils in Melbourne are in debt a lot.
Yep.
We don't have that problem at Monash. So I'm concerned that maybe this is just an easy way for them to, pay down their debt levels.
Yeah.
If it's not debt, then it must be, the people that are using these services must be at the higher end of their demographics. So there's no other reason that I can see. Really.
Crazy one. I'm glad you're a councillor. I'm glad you're able to say that. And not that you're throwing mud at other councils. And I'm glad you mentioned that you'd frozen your rates and you're doing the imitation of the cloth-eared elephant over there. Good on you. But look, so you should at this stage. I mean, really, after the pandemic, stopping kids doing absolutely anything or just taking the edge off. People have just had a rate hike. Cost of living is going up. Now it's too expensive to take kids swimming. That is just crackers. Madness.
Absolutely. And as we know, the cost of just about everything in cost of living is going up.
Yeah.
And it's only going to get worse, as we know, with interest rates, etc. So, if you're in Yarra, please make your concerns known because there is a draft process for a reason. For these very reasons, so people can take a second look.
People are going to do it. Good on you, Theo. Good to see you. Now, I've just bought you a sugarless Coke from the vending machine here.
Yep.
Next time I see you, I hope it's near a really good coffee shop and I fancy a bit of slice.
You have a standing invitation to anywhere in Eden Mall, Oakley, Grub.
Yeah, I love it there.
I'll buy you a moussaka and a coffee as well.
I love it. I love it. Theo, good to see you.
Thanks, Grub.
Good on you. Always a pleasure. Theo Zagrafis, Monash Councillor with News of the Day. Always a pleasure there. Dr. Inez Rio is next.